All right, all welcome back into Sons today. My name is Adam. I am with Brian W. Peterson again this week, and for the first time in a long time, Brian, we get to break down a UCF victory. It hasn't happened. You were just running the stats before we turned on the microphones here. How long has it been since we can talk about a UCF win? How long has it been since we can talk about a win at the Bounce House?
It's been over a month since the Knights have notched a victory. Victory period. The last game that they won was on the road at TCU in their miraculous second half comeback. And the last win in the Bounce House was against Sam Houston back in early September 7th. So we have been craving for a win in the Bounce. We've been craving for a win, let alone in the Bounce House. But having a one in the Bounce House is also pretty fun.
What's funny is that was 4 quarterbacks ago for us, and the last time we had a win.
That is true.
Is also a nice fun fact.
That was back in the era of KJ Jefferson.
What will you remember most about the KJ Jefferson era? It's that game, right? It's TCU, second half TCU. That's for whatever we think of KJ Jefferson as the years trickle on here. It's going to be that second half. That's all we got, right? That's
it is. I mean, it was a good half of football, right? He played really well and led us to a comeback victory. We all thought that he was going to be the guy we thought he was going to be at that point. And here we are, several quarterbacks later. And it's now the Dylan Risk era.
It appears to be, Brian. Let's get into all that, too. Again, if you haven't been plugged in for whatever reason, UCF beats Arizona 56-12, space game in the Bounce House. It wasn't even really that close. UCF jumps out to a big lead and continues to press the gas. And to Brian's point, our fourth different quarterback. I want to look up. I ran out of time. This has to be a record for a number of quarterbacks who started a season. 2015, maybe the only other year I can think of. I have to look. I know Holman. I think Nick Patty started a game there. I think Bo Schneider. I think Tyler Harris started the game.
Yeah.
This may be the most starting quarterbacks, maybe without injury. Maybe that's the caveat. Without anybody being injured, the most starting quarterbacks. But Dylan Risk comes in, takes the helm, and obviously UCF looks impressive, 56-12 against Arizona, Brian. So here's some stuff. All right, it's the first time we have to talk about a win in a while. I know the fan base is frustrated, right? You're frustrated. I'm frustrated. It hasn't been a lot to cheer about this year. There's been a lot of moments. So let's try to do something different, Brian. Let's start off with the positives. All right. There's some negatives. We're going to get to that. And I know a lot of people want the positivity, bro. Let's start with the positives. What did you like about what you saw Saturday as UCF just dump trucks Arizona?
Well, I mean, the first thing to like is that we pulled out the victory, right? We got the win as the notes, as UCF football notes would tell you, a win would be better than a loss. And certainly at this point, any win is welcome since it's been a 5-game losing skid that we now break and get a victory at home. So you and I were both there. We were in the stands. We were inside the Bounce House, having a good time, high-fiving. The offense was putting up points galore. It was like any other space game that we've seen in the past several years, where we just pretty much looked unstoppable against an Arizona team that was struggling on the road.
Yeah, stop me if you've heard this before. Space game at home in the rain against a team with a ton of talent, and RJ Harvey runs for over 190 yards. Stop me if you've heard that before, because it felt like a carbon copy, Brian, of last year's space game at Oklahoma State. I think that team, Oklahoma State, was better than this Arizona team coming into it, but a lot of the same parallels. The major difference is, as you said off the top, it was Dylan Risk, right? And here's a guy who, by all accounts, I mean, UCF only releases it 2 deep. And so we don't really know where he was in the depth chart, but it's safe to say he was not 1 or 2. And then EJ Colson somehow got a start. So you have to assume he wasn't 3. You have to assume Dylan Risk was the 4th-string quarterback coming into this season. And yet here he is on this stage. We saw him at BYU. Gus and that offensive staff are being very, very tight-lipped about who the starter was, right? Not a lot of conversation. And obviously we get to the stadium and you're hearing all about Dylan Risk, Brian. And overall, for a kid making his first start, 20 of 25, 3 touchdowns, 294 yards passing, almost 300 yards passing. Actually ran the ball for 61 yards as well. I think he isn't a running quarterback, but he's a quarterback who can run if he has to. And I think we saw at least one time where he got like a good 35-yard first down pickup. So Dylan Risk was impressive. I think I know we're supposed to be positive time, so I don't know if this is negative. So if it is, you guys can all yell at me later. I love what he did. He brought a ton of spark, a ton of energy. You just felt a different kind of vibe out there, right? You felt some things differently. But it's only one game, right? It's only one game. There's a lot to go. But I'm here on the hopium, Brian. I know it's only one game, and he's got to go to Arizona State, and it's a tough road environment, and I get all that. And people have had one good game before in their lives. I get it. And I don't know if he can keep this up. It's probably unreasonable to suspect he can keep this up every game. But for this one day, Brian, Dylan Risk was exactly what this team needed, and he answered the bell, almost play in and play out. A relatively flawless performance. I think he was a 90+ rating on Pro Football Focus, which is one of the more elite grades, Brian. So the positives, the Dylan Risk era, as you said, maybe has begun for UCF. Gus said it's a, quote, only common sense, which is rich coming from Gus, by the way. Only common sense would tell you that he should start going forward. So I guess we should assume Dylan Risk is QB1 for the rest of the year, barring injury.
Only common sense that it took us 9 games to find a quarterback who can actually pass for almost 300
there may have been an
yards
asterisk after that common sense. I didn't see it. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, no, Dylan had himself a game. And what I was most impressed about with Dylan was not necessarily the stats that he put up, which were great, as you said, 20 and 25, nearly 300 yards passing, 61 yards on the ground, and he threw for 3 touchdowns, and he spread the ball around too. It wasn't just, he didn't focus in on just Kobe Hudson, right? He spread the ball around to plenty of receivers. They all got involved. But it was his composure, right? I mean, he did come in for the last couple drives of the BYU game and got his feet wet a little bit in that game. But after that first drive against Arizona, he really settled in and really seemed to compose himself and seemed to have good command of the offense. I'm sure that they minimized the offense, to keep things where he was comfortable running the offense, but he did not look like a rookie out there, right? He didn't look like a redshirt freshman, which is what he is, right? He looked like he was, he's been doing this all season long. And I was really, really impressed with his leadership and of the offense and the team. And he was excited, like Gus said, he brought a spark to the team. But I mean, he was just thrilled to be out there. He looked like he was having fun, which is an important part of the game.
Yeah, what's interesting about this too, and I was curious how this would happen, Brian, because he's not an EJ Colson, he's not a Ja'Cory Brown, he's not a KJ Jefferson, he's not a guy that I think is going to be a runner first or a plus runner, as I would say, right? I think he can run when he has to, but I don't think that's what he's looking to do. He's looking to make his reads, make progressions, get the ball down the field. So I was curious how UCF would tailor the offense to him, being that he can't run the same way Ja'Cory Brown did, right? So it's going to have to be some different packages, and it did seem like they trusted him to make some throws. There's only one throw I remember him making where I was like, oh my God, don't do that. And he almost got it picked off, and he didn't. Luckily, things could have been different there, but they seemed like they trusted him to go downfield. They trusted him to take some shots down the field. He had a beautiful one-on-one Jacoby Jones touchdown on the sideline there, threw him a perfect ball. So it seemed like they had some trust in him, which is great. And perhaps that comes from the fact that the kid answered the bell, right? They told him to make a tough throw, then he made a tough throw. I'm certainly not an expert on all things football, but I have to believe one thing is true here. We talked about Dylan Risk being a positive. I think the other positive, and surprise, surprise, RJ Harvey, right? Who just seems to be the positive of all positives. And look, the reality is, for whatever reason, the running game had been a little slowed the last couple of weeks, right? Colorado kind of got some pressure on them. Florida did the same. Iowa State had some moments, right? And RJ's broken out his runs, but I think we've all said, man, this running game is just it's not clicking. Iowa State was really Ja'Cory Brown did a lot on the ground. Part of me has to wonder, again, I'm not a huge football savant. The threat of a throwing quarterback has to force the defense to play a little bit differently, right? Like, that's just common sense. And so part of me wonders if RJ's 22 carries for 191 yards don't come because of the fact the defense is like, oh crap, this actually has a right arm and can use it. Like, we have to do something different. So part of me wonders if, again, the RJ Harvey ascension, which again, he's great, and I don't think he needs much to get going, but having somebody back there that has a skill set that the defense then has to honor on the passing side, I wonder how much that played into what RJ was able to accomplish.
It's funny that you mentioned that. We gush over RJ Harvey so much that we've gotten to the point in the season now where if we're not talking about him, it's because he's continuing to do what he does every game, and that is just churn out yard after yard. It seemed like in this game, the yards did come a little easier for him. And as you alluded to, that's probably because we had a quarterback who could throw the football, right? And that causes defenses to have to adjust. They can't bring their guys up to the line of scrimmages as much as they would like to. They can't be blitzing like they would probably like to because they have to worry about Dylan Riss standing in the pocket, throwing the ball down the field. And that is something that this offense has been missing all season long. And it's something that we as fans have been clamoring to see, is a quarterback that can throw the ball and take some of the pressure off of RJ Harvey so that he can be the stud running back that he is. The yards that RJ Harvey was picking up, as I said, seemed easier because the defenders weren't in his face the minute he took the ball out of the quarterback's hands, right? He was able to get past the line of scrimmage before they had that first contact on him. And then he was breaking tackles and gaining yards from there. Whereas it seemed like the 8 games prior to then, when he did get the ball majority of the time, he was having to break tackles at the line of scrimmage in order to get the ball moving forward. So just a completely different dynamic for RJ. He must have felt like he was on vacation in this game because he was running all over them and didn't seem to have to fight at the line of scrimmage as much as he seemed to have to in the past. And that goes to credit to the passing game and Dylan for being able to take some of that pressure off of him.
Well, yeah, the story leading into this week, obviously, Brian, was the changes that Gus Malzahn made. Offensively, Tim Harris calling plays, and again, you see the output, almost 600 yards of total offense. Dylan Risk with a great game. RJ Harvey with a great game. The other change was the defense. The roof is no longer here, and now the roof is gone, and like we now have we're a Tropicana field over here. We now have Addison Williams back into the lead chair on defense. Now, Arizona's been struggling offensively, right? But they have some weapons. I mean, Tedero McMillan is going to be a top 10, 15 draft pick next year. Noah Fafita had a really good year in 2023. So they have some weapons on offense. But this defense, Brian, did a really nice job throughout the day. I mean, I think there are certainly some plays you want to have back, some third downs, but by and large, they forced a turnover, which was great. They had decent coverage. They got out the field on third downs a lot. They upped their sack. I want to say they doubled their sack total. I think they had 4 in this game. I think it's double that they've had the entire season so far. So what did you make of this new Addison Williams 2.0 style defense and how they performed on Saturday?
Yeah, there's a couple different things we need to consider with the defense. As you alluded to, Addison Williams getting his first start, taking over the role of the now exited Ted Roof as our defensive coordinator. So it was nice to see the players respond to Addison. The rumors coming out of the locker room was that a lot of the guys were really fired up to go out and perform well for Addison this week. It's no mystery that Addison is one of our biggest recruiters. The players really respond to him. They really like him in the locker room. So I think that they were pumped up to be back in the bounce house for the space game, and they had something to prove to Addison Williams. They wanted to go out and perform well for him in this first week that Addison being bumped up to defensive coordinator. The other side of that coin, of course, is that Arizona has had problems on offense all season long. They have a first-year head coach in their head coach. Arizona does, excuse me. So they've struggled all year long on offense. And while Noah Fafita is a great quarterback and they have a stud wide receiver, they only finished the day with 5 yards rushing against the UCF defense, which has been not great down the stretch here these last few games. So I think that the level of competition this week, the offense that the defense faced was probably not as stout as we've seen these last few games against Iowa State, against BYU, so on and so forth. Going all the way back, like I said, to probably to the Sam Houston game, as our colleague Christian Simmons would say at the Pegasus podcast, that these fake games that we played at the beginning of the season, this is probably the closest level of competition in regards to the offense that we've seen on the field that we've had to line up against, just because they've had struggles out of Arizona for, this season so far. So I think the defense did play well, but we also need to consider the level of competition that they were going up against.
And Brian, we're being positive here for a second. Also,
I'm sorry.
I had to find out. You stayed away from saying the receiver from Arizona's name. Are you afraid of pronunciation there?
Absolutely.
Tetaroa McMillan.
Tetaroa. Okay.
Yes. All right. I saw you were like, and they have a receiver guy.
Tetaroa.
I could sense the fear in your eyes about as you're trying to sound out his name. I'll say this. You said this was Addison's first rodeo. It's really not, right? He was DC last year. So it's his first shot this season. And I alluded to this, I think, on a live show or something recently. When myself and Trace and Robert were out at Big 12 Media Day, coaches are there, players are there. And as UCF walked in that day, right, we knew UCF was coming. We actually had a planned time to meet them before the session so we could get some interviews and talk to everybody, right? And so, we go meet up where they're at. And all of a sudden I look over and there's Addison Williams. And Tristan and I were like, what's Addison Williams doing here? Like, obviously you bring the coach, you bring players, but we were like, why is Addison here? Right. So, we walk over and say hello, whatever. And he was pretty candid in his conversation because we were kind of like, hey man, like, what are you doing here? Right.
What's going on?
And he was like, Coach Gus wanted me to come and just experience this, see what it's like, and just kind of be a part of it. And at the time, Tristan and I were like, that's really interesting. Like, why would you do that? And then we kind of talked to him on the side a little bit about, what's going on with the defense. And you could tell he was open, but he was being cagey a little bit. And I will tell you, without betraying confidence, he looked fired up that he had been replaced, right? Mm-hmm. He looked like he was a guy who was like, his exact quote, and I'll use this quote because I don't think he'll care I say this. He said, it's not like I forgot how to coach. And so he alluded to some things last year with the defense, some changes he wanted to make that just wasn't possible, some things he had to do. And again, you can read between the lines, I guess, and what that looks like. But I think he was a guy, to your point, who was itching to get that opportunity again. I think he realized some mistakes he made. I think there were some things maybe that happened that weren't in his favor for whatever reason. And as a young coach, maybe with a veteran head coach who controls a lot of the program, maybe he wasn't able to appropriately push back. I don't know. This is speculation on my part. But I got the sense that day in July that this was a guy who was like, I'm not an idiot and I can coach, and like, damn it, if I get a chance, I'm gonna do this again the right way. And so maybe there's some of that, Brian. Maybe there's some of the players who saw this and was like, man, like Addison was our guy, and now they bring in Ted Roof and he seems okay, but like, so I wonder if there was a bit of a special moment for the players on defense saying, you know what, we're going to take some pride in this one, because I thought it was interesting the way this game started. UCF, long drive like we've seen before, and guess what happens, Brian? We settle for a field goal, and guess what happens, Brian? We missed the field goal. Yeah. Stop me if you've heard this before. The guy next to us, when the ball was in the air, somebody yelled no good, and he goes, shocking, right? Because and I think I started laughing hysterically, like, this is just UCF 2024 football, 11-minute drive or whatever the heck it was, and we can't get a field goal in, right? And then we come down on defense and we force a turnover. And then we score off the turnover. Like, and that's when I was like, whoa, like something new is here, right? Like, that's almost the anti-Colorado of what happened to us. So part of me wonders if the Tim Harris change and the Addison Williams change, I know you can probably overblow like it was a spark and people got really excited, but I do wonder if there's an element of the guys on the team being like, okay, like, to your point, these are our coaches. It's always said that players spend more time with their position coaches than they do the head coach. We always say Gus this, Gus that, Gus it. I mean, I'd actually be curious if we put Gus, on in a room and just brought in a player not wearing his uniform, if Gus could tell us that person's name, right? There's 100 of them. I'm not knocking him, but it's got to be tough. But I bet you Addison Williams knows a bunch of them. I bet you Tim Harris knows a bunch of them, right? And so part of me wonders, to your point, if there wasn't something. I think you saw that a lot on defense.
Gus, he's been caught at the podium saying, number 27 looked really good out there, where he didn't know the player's name, and obviously he's got a lot to worry about. So, this goes back to the offseason, right? At the end of the 2023 season, the defense wasn't quite where a lot of folks wanted it to be. I don't think that's any great epiphany to us. The defense wasn't what it should have been last year, or what the coaches perhaps felt that it could have been. And in the offseason, Gus went out and he hired Ted Roof, which kind of left a lot of us scratching our heads like, well, the defense wasn't great, but the players really like Addison Williams. You just promoted him to defensive coordinator, and now you're demoting him. Oh, but he's co-defensive coordinator. So this was one of those shakeups that we saw in the in the off season, where we all kind of stopped and said, well, what are we doing this for? why are we bringing in this other guy? And oh, well, he's going to dial up pressure and he's going to make things better. And, and just one of those changes that didn't work out. Right. So we put Addison back in the DC chair, and he has himself, a great game he called. The defense played well. The guys were fired up, and hopefully they can continue to move that forward, advance the defense in these last 3 games that we've got, because we're going to now have to go on the road to both Arizona State and West Virginia. Arizona State's playing very well. West Virginia, maybe not as well as they would like their season to be, but still a very dangerous opponent, especially for us while we're still trying to figure out our offense. And we've got a new defensive coordinator now, and we have to go on the road to West Virginia, which is a rowdy place to play. And then we're welcoming Utah back into the bounce house for Black Friday weekend. So a few more weeks for Addison to continue to build on the success that the defense had last night.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Arizona State and West Virginia, both 3-2 in conference, right? So they're not super tough games, and maybe they're winnable. West Virginia's having some issues with their coach right now. They're overall, what are they? 4-4 on the year right now. And so there's a lot of people in Morgantown are disappointed with that. I think another positive, Brian, and again, this is going to sound like a negative, but it's really a positive. The positive is you said this earlier, and kind of the lead up here is we're starting to hear and see names of guys that are kind of coming back onto our radar that we hadn't seen in a while, that either we thought would contribute and we didn't hear a lot from. Freshmen who kind of came in. You mentioned Jacoby Jones. That's a great example. Guy was a stud receiver at Ohio. Again, it's a MAC school. I get it. Stud receiver at Ohio. Hadn't gotten a lot on the field. I thought the presser was really interesting because somebody asked Gus post game about Jacoby Jones, and he said something like, "Yeah, we just weren't able to get him on the field." Like, why? Like, was he chained to the bench? Like, what do you mean you couldn't get him on the field? Like, hey, 16, get in. It's not hard. I can do that. So I thought that comment was curious. But you're starting to hear more names. X-Ray Alexander's a guy now that's basically taken over for linebacker. Deshaun Pace is now kind of back to that hybrid safety nickel position. And so you're starting to see some of the guys. Chasen Johnson is getting more of an opportunity. The names that we're thinking about, they're getting on the field. Obviously, Dylan Reyes, Grant Reddick are getting out there, and they're playing well, Brian. And so that's the positive side of it. I'll keep the positive side is guys are getting opportunities now, and a lot of them seem to be making the most of those opportunities, stepping up, making plays, and in some cases kind of being players that we have to rely on, which is awesome. That as things have kind of churned a little bit, you're finding guys who are sitting around there on the 2 deep or 3 deep who are hungry and are getting chances. Dalen Dott's another example, who are just coming in and playing really well. So that's my other positive. Other guys just kind of getting in there and taking the most of the opportunity.
And I wonder if that has to do with some of the potential, these decommits that we've heard over the last couple of weeks. I wonder if the coaching staff isn't trying to show some of these younger guys like, hey, look, we are willing to play some of these younger guys and get them the reps in the game and not, just have them standing on the sidelines. This is a full team effort, right? And I think some of these younger guys, like you said, have played very well in the opportunities that they've gotten, right? The Dalen Dotson, I believe, was your star that you gave out in our last post game pod. And these younger guys are, they're out there, they're making plays, they're flying around, they're looking good, and it bodes well for the future.
Yeah, it's so hard, man. Like, I wish there was a way to have this answered. Like, coaching today, how much of it is pressure on salary cap, essentially, right? Like, is there a pressure to say, hey, we're paying a guy X, so we have to play him, or hey, this guy's like got this, so we have to play him? Like, I just wonder how much of that is there. I guess we'll never really know that, at least we won't for a while. But the younger guys that have kind of stepped in, I think, have done a really nice job. I think one other positive, Brian, and I don't love this as a positive, but I think it was a positive, and you are in a perfect position to keep me honest on this. While the crowd was a little sparse on Saturday, I think the announced is 42,110. I don't know if I saw 42,000 there, but whatevs. 42,110 was the announced. It was still a pretty decent sized crowd. It was loud when it needed to be. The student section, especially on the south end zone, really was loud, and they were moving around a little bit. The rain did not help. It did not help, obviously, keep the crowd. But again, it kind of had that vibe from last year against Oklahoma State in the space game. So I will give the alleged 110,000 people there some credit for showing up, being loud, for supporting the team, because it was a perfect day to be like, you know what, I'm good. I'm gonna sit on the couch. I'm not gonna get wet. I'm gonna watch this team. We're gonna suck anyway. Blah blah blah. And yet, 42,000 people show up. So I will give a positive to the crowd. Again, certainly a little sparser than we're used to, but I think everything considered, I think it was a good crowd and an engaged crowd into the game.
No, I think you're right. It wasn't a sellout by any means. And even for a space game, it felt like perhaps it was a little sparse. Not to say that we didn't have a lot of energy inside the stands, but they were slow to come in. As the first game as the first quarter kicked off, I took a look around the stadium and I could see plenty of open seats. There were still plenty of people in the stadium, but there was, you could see the spots where they were missing or empty spots in the stadium. But at one point, as it was raining, I had my wife and my daughter with me. So we took refuge underneath the concourse to get out of the rain a little bit. And we were so we're watching the game. They have videos or TVs around the concourse. And so we're watching the game from, sheltering from the rain on the TV screens. And there's about a 20-second delay on the TV screen versus what's happening on the field. So the crowd, as sparse as it was, even in the rain where people were coming into the concourse, there were still plenty of people that elected to stay out in the rain, and my hat's off to them. We could hear them cheer when a big play was made, and we all knew to look at the TV screen for the touchdown or the pick or the interception or the long ball that was being thrown or the RJ Harvey run that was taking place. So you could still hear them from the concourse in the rain. They were still loud. They were still rowdy. And it was a great atmosphere, right? Lots of fireworks going off, lots of space-themed games going on throughout the breaks in between the quarters. So it was a great day.
A couple other fun stats, Brian, that are positives I'll throw out there. Only 5 penalties for UCF, 5 for 40, which compared to Arizona had 10 for 100, right? So 5 penalties, 40 yards. I'll take that. 600 yards of total offense, 8.7 yards per play. UCF ran 69 total offensive play. So again, a lot of things we're just clicking at offense. There are a lot of positives to take away from that, but we wouldn't be the show we are, Brian. And we wouldn't be here if we weren't pissing people off by talking about the negative, right? So let's talk about a little bit of the things that still maybe we have to consider, have to be thought about, right? I said this a little bit off the top, but I think we all have to have a little bit of patience with Dylan Risk. I think it's going to be unrealistic to expect him to put up a 20 for 25 every game, right? Do I think the kid has potential? Absolutely. Did he show us a lot on Saturday? He certainly did. Does he have a lot of the moxie that you want in a quarterback? There was a guy next to us, and I don't know if we drug tested UCF anymore, Brian, but there's a guy next to us who was yelling out loud to us like the best 10 in UCF history, the best number 10 in UCF history, right? And while
best quarterback to wear number 10 in UCF history,
you can't spell Risk without KZ. I get it, but I think we should slow the brakes a little bit here on anointing Dylan Risk the next great quarterback. Again, he played really well, but this is his first start, the third game I think he's played total in his college career. Let's have some patience. Let's have some grace. It may take some time, and we need to see if the rest of the season plays out. But I'm optimistic, and I'm willing to ride with it at this point. Let's ride with it. The ups, the downs, the fumbles, the interceptions, the bonehead plays. I'm here for it all. Here for the vibes. But let's pump the brakes just a little bit, and assuming that we've got a Heisman contender here all of a sudden.
So it's funny you say that because I went back and I was watching some of the highlights from the game. Obviously, I was in the stadium, so I couldn't hear the radio broadcast. I didn't get to watch it on TV, so on and so forth. So I got to watch some of the highlights that were on social media. And the one big run that Dylan had where he took off and he scrambled it was like 30 or 40, maybe even 50 yards.
33 yards.
33 yards. Okay. It looked more. But yeah, okay. So he had that.
I think he ran sideways for a second. I don't know what he was trying to do.
Yeah, he was running around a lot. North and south, Dylan. North and south.
Yes.
But so the radio broadcast that they had synced up with the highlight was Mark Daniels saying, "Is that Dylan Risk or is that Mackenzie Milton out there?" And I was like, "Oh, hang on now, hang on now.
Easy.
It's his first start, guys. Come on. I mean, it's his first start. It's Arizona. They're not number 11 BYU or number 9 Iowa State. Let's pump the brakes here for a second." Yes, he did look good. I liked everything that I saw out of the kid, his composure, his fiery spirit. He threw the ball well. Had no picks on the day, 3 touchdowns, kept the play alive. He had that one Hail Mary where he scrambled around for a bit, avoided some pressure, and then put the ball up in the air and gave Randy Pittman Jr. a chance to come down with it. So I like everything that I've seen. He's going to get his first real test next week on the road at an Arizona State team that's playing well. So I'm going to reserve judgment on the future of our program being in the hands of Dylan Risk until I see a little bit more out of him. That doesn't mean he doesn't have the potential and can't do it. I'm rooting for him. I really hope that he does. But a lot of people, I think, are just excited, right, to see somebody playing well and throwing the ball. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited too. I'm upset that it's taken us 9 games to find a quarterback who knows that you can make a forward pass. But we need to keep our expectations down to earth and take this one game at a time.
Yeah, I think I hear what I think you and I are saying the same things. I want to be clear to everybody out there before you get my YouTube comments. We are pro Dylan Risk. we
Yes.
like Dylan Risk. I think he did a great job. I think he's got a great future. But I think we're also going to have to live with some growing pains, as any young quarterback will do in any league that person's playing in. But I'm of the belief, Brian, at this point, let's just stick with a guy. Like if at this point, if it's Dylan, let's just go. Like, let's stop doing this. Is it Curry? Is it EJ? Is it like, let's just pick a guy and let's just go and live with the ups and the downs. Live with the 20 of 25s and live with, an 8 of 17, whatever. Like, let's just pick somebody and live with it. I think you saw enough from Dylan Risk in this offense on Saturday to say, I can see how this can be a system that can work out. Now, I will say this in defense of Arizona, not a great team this year. I think even their coach afterwards is like, I got to figure this out because I don't know what we're doing around here. Poor Brett Brennan, who is not actually Willie Fritz, but is actually Brent Brennan. They're not good, but they also didn't have a ton of tape on Dylan Risk, right? I mean, they saw him basically for 2 drives against BYU.
That's a great point.
I don't think they knew what kind of offense that he was going to run. Arizona State now has a whole 4 quarters with a tape of this kid to say, okay, here's how we're going to match him up. Here's what UCF might do. So I think that's also the thing you have to think about is people are going to catch up at some point. They're going to understand the system. Let's not forget Kenny Dillingham, Arizona's coach, coached with Gus at Auburn. He was his offensive coordinator, air quotes, for a year. So
does he need a job? I hear Coach Mel.
We have 8 or 9 guys. We have 8 or 9 offensive coordinator openings, so maybe right. he can slide right in, right? So pump the again. It could be tougher as it goes on the road, but I think we both agree that Dylan Risk has a bright future, and I'm here to see what that looks like. But on the negative side, basically the other conversation with this is, and you said this earlier, and I'll say this a little more bluntly. What the hell took so long? Like, what the hell took so long for us to get to a point where we say, okay, here are the guys that should be playing. Here are the guys that shouldn't be playing. Here's what I've heard behind the scenes, Brian. Here's what I think I said this on a show last week too. Here's kind of what's been said to me. It was apparent in camp that Dylan was the best, what people have called me, quarterback. He wasn't the best thrower of the football. EJ has what I understand to be the stronger arm and sort of the more impressive arm that you go, oh my God, how far did that thing go? But Dylan had sort of to borrow a George O'Leary phrase, the fieldsmanship of being a quarterback, right? Obviously, he's not a runner. KJ, Curry, that was more the running style quarterback. That I think is what Gus wanted. One of the things I had heard was the knock on Dylan Risk is he didn't grade out as strong in the RPO game. Right, which essentially is when do you pull it, when do you throw it, when do you run it? Like, what do you do in the RPO game? What I understand, he did not grade out as highly in the RPO situations as other quarterbacks. I understand you have to play KJ. Like, it would have taken a lot of stones for Gus to put over 400K potentially on the table of KJ Jefferson and bench him before the first ever game, right? So I get that piece, but it just makes you wonder what took so long to get to this point. Is this a fair amount of time, Brian? Maybe you and I are being unrealistic, and Gus says, "Hey, I wanted to try some guys. I had to give him a couple games. I don't know, but I can certainly understand the frustration of fans who are like, "Where's this been all along?" Because I've been waiting for a quarterback, and I see this kid on the field, and he looks pretty darn good. Like, where has this been all along?
I don't think it's a coincidence that this is the first week that Gus has given up play calling to Tim Harris, and we see a quarterback come in that we have not seen all season, except for the few drives against the BYU team last week. My thought is, if Gus doesn't like a quarterback, I'm probably really going to like him as a quarterback, right? There's an inverse relationship there between what I see a quarterback should be and what Gus thinks a quarterback should be. So the fact that he was potentially QB number 4 in Gus's eyes leads me to believe that he probably should have been the quarterback guy, from the start. And that's evident from what we've seen so far. And I stress from, I say so far, right? We don't know how he's going to play down the stretch here. We'll see when defenses have the ability to adjust to what he's done. They've got some tape on him. We've said before, I don't know anything about football. Coaches are paid millions and millions of dollars to coach and to know the things that I don't know. So if I am Arizona State, I am now going to be able to adjust and be prepared for Dylan Risk when he comes into Arizona to play next week. So I think that we're going to see some adjustments made, and we're going to see what they can do to prepare for Dylan. But it's crazy that it's taken this long for us to find a quarterback who can actually throw the ball and move the ball down the field, which, just like we talked about earlier, helps RJ move the ball. It keeps us, balanced, so to speak. And that's something that we've been missing, right? We've been stalling on drives on offense all season long because we don't have any answer when they stack the box or bring the blitz.
Maybe a question that we can ask Coach Lounsbury this week on Suns Live, or maybe our friend Andy, UCF XOS on Twitter can tell us this answer. But it feels to me, outsider looking in, not knowing, again, to your point, a ton of football. I'm not a football coach. It seems to me that Gus favors a quarterback that fits his system more so than maybe the quarterback that has the most talent, right? And I don't know if that's the way to phrase it, but looking at a Dylan Risk and saying, okay, he can't do what this guy does or what this guy does, right? He's still good. He just doesn't fit. It's so perfect. This is the Arizona State week because it allows me to play my favorite Kenny Dillingham sound, which he took it from Big 12 Media Day, where he says Gus is basically going to ram a square peg into a round hole and make it fit, right? And that's kind of what this feels like to an extent. Like, okay, I'm going to find a way to make sure I have a running quarterback, and that's what I'm going to do because that's my system and that's who runs it. And then someone's like, hey, wait a minute, what? This guy's actually not so bad over here. This number 10, maybe, oh yeah, I'll give him a shot. I just wonder how much of that is in play. I will say this though, I wonder if Arizona State's perspective, and again, maybe as this is a Lounsbury or an Andy question, is the Tim Harris play book different? Gus's tendencies. I don't mean play. I mean tendencies. Like what's Tim going to call versus what Gus called? Is there some nuance there? Whereas a defense, you're like, okay, this isn't exactly Gus's. There's some stuff here that's different. This guy's calling a different strategy. I just wondered that. But to your point, I think you can ask that question about Dylan Risk. You can ask that question about Jacoby Jones. How was Jacoby Jones on the bench? And again, I don't mean this to be mean, by the way. It's going to sound mean. Trent freaking Whittemore was like wide receiver 3 all season long.
He was.
God bless Trent Whittemore. Seems like a really good kid, but you saw Jacoby Jones is a beast man child out there, right? How was he not on the field more, right? How was he not on the field over Chauncey Magwood? How was he not over the field in some of these situations? And for Gus to say, we couldn't get him on the field again, I just really want to know, was he locked in a tank somewhere? Were shoelaces tied together? Why could we not get him on the field? I'm flabbergasted, and that's the part where you can knock Gus the coach all you want, and I think it's all pretty fair criticism. You can absolutely knock Gus the play caller, and again, I think it's pretty fair criticism. I think the two areas that Gus concerns me is the talent evaluator and the ability to develop players. As bad air quotes as we think he is as a coach and a play caller, the fact that he's got guys on the bench that could potentially have impact and they're not getting into the game, just it's boggling to me. And I just wonder what that process is and how we get there. And oh, by the way, another thing that was said at the presser this week, Brian, and again, maybe this is a football coach question. He said for the first time all season, he spent some time with the defense at practice. So am I to believe that for the entire 7 weeks prior to that, he was like, all right, y'all go over here. We'll be over here if you need me. Am I to believe that's how that worked?
That sounds like something that Josh Heupel would have said when he was the head coach and Randy Shannon was the defensive
That sounds like something
right?
my gym teacher would say in 6th grade. You guys go over here. We're going to go over here. When the bell rings, come inside. That sounds like something. And again, maybe that's normal in football, right? For a coach to be dominant on one side of the ball and stay on that side of the ball. And maybe we're naive by thinking that, but for Gus to say that out loud, hey, either he's just doesn't give to what's right now, or he just doesn't understand what that was, Brian. But it makes you scratch your head about some of the decisions that have been made recently.
Well, I mean, I just said it, right? So as Gus and I seem to have that inverse relationship. So as he is higher on a player, I'm probably going to be lower on that player, and the reverse is also true, right? So as we have seen these guys who have come in the last few games and have just been lighting it up on the field, we're all scratching our heads saying, where have these guys been all season long? And is that, I have to believe that is Gus and perhaps Ted Roof and the two guys who were running the offense and the defense prior to Gus relieving play calling and Ted Roof being fired. They were the ones figuring out who was going to get the primary snaps and be the guys out on the field. And now we're starting to see some of these younger guys come in and they're really lighting it up. And it really does make you wonder what Gus sees that that we all see differently. I'm interested to see how these guys continue to play as the season progresses. The scary thing is we've only got 3 games left before the end of the season. So, all of these reps these younger guys are getting are more and more valuable every game they play in.
The other negative that I think we have to discuss is, and you said that we touched on this a little bit, you said it earlier, I don't think Arizona was all that good. And so did we just get fat and happy off a team that, really wasn't motivated, wasn't playing well? Listen, we've been doing the live show for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years now. And before every game, we try to have on sort of a voice from the other side to get perspective. I have never had somebody talk to us the way that our friend Eric Cohen talked this week about Arizona, when he was pretty much like, yeah, we're hot garbage. We are terrible. You guys should beat us by 100. And I logged off the show and Trey started talking and was like, is he serious? Like, is he just trying to like, do a little okey doke situation here? Like, is he legit? And then I was like, oh yeah, look at that. I have never had somebody say that and actually be 1,000% right. And literally everything he said played out. And it kind of felt like after a while, you could see Arizona. I'm not saying they quit, but you could tell the spirit wasn't there. Right. And it's the first year for head coach Brett Brennan. Maybe he's not long for that job. I don't know Arizona enough to be able to know that, right? But it could be a situation where the wheels are coming off at Arizona, right? So I just think the other thing we have to say on the negative side as well, we can be happy about everything that we saw. And again, it was a great day to be at night. It was a great day to be in the bounce house, Citronauts, Space U, vibes, rain, whatever. We all had a fantastic time in that experience. Brian's wiping a tear from his eye. We all had a fantastic time in that experience.
I'm so happy.
I know. You're so excited. But we may not have played a good football team. And so I think we have to keep that in mind as we move forward, especially 2 straight road games, to your point. Arizona State playing pretty well. It's going to be dawn-ish or dusk-ish, I guess, for Arizona. I think it's a 7:30 Eastern kick, so it's a 5:30 Arizona kick. So sun will be going down a little bit, like all day long tailgating for the students. Arizona State's got a large student body population. I think they're usually one of the top 3 with UCF.
They are, yep.
And Ohio State are up there, right? So kids are going to get liquored up, I assume, have a good old time being in the stadium and making a lot of noise. And this team's pretty good. So all that to say, enjoy the performance. It was great. I had a blast. I've smiled all day Sunday. It was great. But I also don't know if Arizona's any good. And I'm not sure if we should be getting so excited about a team that may or may not implode.
No, I agree. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but we do need to keep that in perspective, right? Arizona, despite being a preseason top 25 pick in the AP, they have not been a good team so far. So we really do need to keep that in perspective when we're, high-fiving each other and saying, all right, we're back. This is it. We found our quarterback. We got all the pieces in place now. Let's see how things play out over these next few weeks. Last week we talked about, the chances of us making a bowl game were not very good. The victory yesterday helps our chances, but we still need to find 2 more wins against 3 very talented teams, each with their own problems. I mean, Arizona State, probably the toughest contest left on the schedule, just because we have to go to Arizona State and they are playing well. West Virginia will not be a pushover team, nor will Utah, even though they've got their own problems as well. So we need to, keep things in perspective, not get too ahead of ourselves, and just kind of enjoy this game for what it was, a fun one where we were able to put up more than 50 points on offense. Something special about the space game that just, resonates with the players. A lot of players were talking before the game, and there were some comments that they were nervous. They did not want to be the team that lost the first space game for UCF. So I think that there was some added pressure, some added incentive and motivation for them to come out and play well. That there's that old saying, look good, feel good, play good. The space game jerseys and the uniforms, which were absolutely fantastic, by the way, probably played a large role in getting the team hyped up. Before kickoff, I was looking on the sidelines, and the players were, they were jumping up and down. They were fired up. They were ready for this game. So we had a good game. Let's see if we can produce that again next week on the road in a hostile environment.
I feel like look good, feel good, play good would be like the Brian Peterson credo. I feel like that.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like that fits you.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen your shoe game. It's pretty tight.
My shoe game is killing me from this game on Saturday.
Well, you had a terrible shoe choice.
Oh
yeah,
my gosh. Oh.
That was a terrible shoe choice. I saw what you were working with there. I appreciate your commitment to fashion. Your commitment to must not be old enough. You're not old enough yet where comfy shoes become everything when you hit a certain age. They
look good, but
I'm just
hurting today. Yeah,
comfy shoes are everything when you hit a certain age. Look, and I do think there's a lot of opportunity here, but this season's so eerily similar to last year, Brian. We're literally in the exact same spot we were last year, where we win, we lose 5 in a row, we win a space game in the rain, and now we have to win 2 or 3 to get bowl eligibility. It's literally a carbon copy. I think Yogi Berra, not Yogi Berra, that's the cartoon. Yogi Berra said deja vu over again. Like, I feel like we're right here. We're literally right here in that same moment where you got to win 2. Now, I think it's interesting, to your point, I would have said, I think I did say at the beginning of the year, the 2 games I was scared the most about were Utah and West Virginia. When I think we did our power rankings, Mike and I did them on the pod, I had Utah and West Virginia as the 2 games I was least confident in winning. Right now, to your point, like Arizona State seems like of those 3 that you're like, well, wait a minute, that's a problem. They got a running back, Cam Scatterbo, who's just a load to tackle. And it's gonna be a lot of fun, but we'll get back to that at some other point in time. But let's grab a break right here. We'll come back after this. We'll give out our Sons Awards for the week. So we'll walk you through all that stuff. Don't forget, we're brought to you by our good friends at Werner, Hoffman, Greig Garcia. If you're having issues with any of your insurance claims post-hurricane, Werner, Hoffman, Greig Garcia can help you out. They're actually working on some stuff now. So give them our good friend Michael Hoffman a call, 1-800-320-HELP. They can get you in the right direction. If they can't help you, he's a good dude. He will find someone who can definitely give you some attention there. So again, Werner, Hoffman, Greig, and Garcia. Let's grab that break, Brian. We'll be right back. The Sons of UCF is brought to you by Florida Football Prep. Are you ready to take your game to the next level? Then Florida Football Prep has you covered. They provide elite training and top-tier gear for athletes from Pop Warner to professionals. If you're a rising star just starting out, it doesn't matter. You can still check out their Jake Medlock Passing Academy, led by record-setting quarterback Jake Medlock. They don't stop there, though. They've also teamed up with former UCF greats like Marlon Williams and DJ Mack to offer more cutting-edge training that'll put you ahead of the competition. And hey, you need some gear? They have you covered there too. They have custom team apparel, and they also specialize in expertly conditioned leather footballs. They offer everything you need to perform at your best. Their unique football conditioning process enhances grip, throw, and catchability, giving you an edge when it matters the most. Join the ranks of elite athletes that trust Florida Football Prep for the tools, training, and confidence to succeed. Visit FloridaFootballPrep.com and gain your edge today. All right, the new thing, Brian. Categories: Sons, SONS, Satisfactory. Oh my God. And NGE, not good enough. And then S for star. Look at this game. We got some notes, Brian. Let's you're gonna kick off. Guess first here.
The new thing that everyone's doing, the Suns
everyone's doing that no one else is doing besides us, and I don't think anyone's listening to, by the way. But who cares, Brian? Give me your S. Give me your satisfactory for this particular contest.
For the Arizona space game, my satisfactory goes to Dylan Risk and the offense. That may be a little bit controversial.
Whoa, Brian! 600 yards offense.
600 yards of offense.
What did you want? 700? Like what?
600 yards of offense. Almost 300 yards through the air. RJ Harvey being RJ Harvey. We put up a 50 burger. I think that as we've talked at length here on this individual pod, Dylan Risk looked really good. Looked like everything we want him to be in a quarterback. But we just don't know yet what we have. And we've talked about Arizona not being the most difficult opponent on the schedule. So until I have seen more out of the offense, That was Tim Harris's first game calling the offense. Let's see how he continues to adapt and grow and add his own wrinkles to the offense, and do so against a more stout opponent, which we will see this week in Arizona State. So my satisfactory, as much as it pains me to say it, is going to go to the offense and Dylan Risk. Had a great game. I'm giving them a satisfactory this week. I'm a trust but verify guy. I'm an auditor or a former auditor, so I'm a trust but verify guy. So I'm trusting that they have the ability to do it again, but I want you to show me the remaining games on the schedule that it can be done.
Yeah, man. Wow. It sounds like you found some razor blades in your Cheerios. I mean, 600 yards of total offense, Brian. I mean, they seem to be clicking a lot of cylinders here. I think for how things have gone for UCF, like this is about as good of a performance as you could probably get. Like I think I understand again, I think we've said this, the pump the brakes conversation around like, hey, like we're not all the way back. We're still a 4-5 football team that's on their fourth quarterback. And, we still have some issues and we still have a bunch of new court. Like I get it. But I think for this game, man, 600 yards of offense, I feel good about that. I mean, could have been 700. Great. Absolutely. It could have been 700. I guess that's the point. You're right. Could have been 700.
We need once 700. Is a fluke. So let's do it consistently.
All right. Well, Brian's a trust, but you sound like my boss. Trust but verify. Jeez. All right. My satisfactory, Brian. You're not going to remember this play. I'm making sure I'm looking it up right now.
I'm not going to remember this play.
No, you're probably gonna know. You're not gonna remember this play. It is in the fourth quarter, 1st and 10, UCF football on the Arizona 13-yard line, and it is a Miles Montgomery rush to the left for 4 yards. That's my satisfactory.
All right.
You're thinking to yourself, Adam, what the hell are you talking about? I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about, Brian.
He didn't lose yardage, so satisfactory.
No, on that play, Miles got a little jammed up in the backfield, and he kind of moved out to the left, and he was trying to get some yards on the left side. And who emerges out of nowhere to become a quasi-lead blocker? There's one Dylan Risk. Quarterback Dylan Risk comes from out of nowhere, I think you and I could have thrown that block too, by the way, because it wasn't very good. But he got in there. He tried to throw a block. He tried to get some yards. He ended up getting tattooed, which is why this is only satisfactory. I love the fact that this kid saw an opportunity and was like, I'm going to go fight for this. I'm going to go help out my teammate, even on a meager 4, 5, 6, 7 yard gain. Like, let me get involved. Let me play around. I don't love my quarterback throwing his
quarter. Did you say this was in the fourth quarter? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, you were gone by then. Yeah.
Full disclosure.
You were gone by here. Yeah. That's a good call.
My wife wanted to get back. We had our 3-year-old son at home. So we left the game at the end of the third quarter, but I was quick to whip the phone out and bring up the radio broadcast. And as we were making the 25-minute walk back to the car, I listened to the radio broadcast, and I know exactly what play you're talking about because Gary Harris made the comment that Miles Montgomery took the ball, and guess who was blocking for him out front was Dylan Risk. He made a comment because it was a special play by Dylan.
I'm not gonna lie to you. When you said quick to whip something out, like I got flashbacks of UCF. I was like, where is this going? So again, I love the fact that he's here trying to fight for yards for his teammates, right? I don't like my quarterback getting tattooed like that because his back was a little dinged up. I think he came out for a play. Jacurri came in. I think he handed off the next one, and I think there was a penalty actually after that. But either way, I love this kid's moxie. If he's gonna get in there and mix it up and try to get a block, I'm all in on that, man. That's the. You talk about a team that's like, I know, tough and together was their slogan, right? This is the thing that you go, okay, like there's a little something there with this kid, right? And this is not disrespectful. It's not meant to be to anybody, but is KJ throwing that block? Is Curry Brown throwing I don't know. I don't know. Like, I just don't know if they would or they wouldn't. But Dylan is throwing the block. So I love it that he did it. I hate that he almost got killed.
The thing about Dylan is that he's not a small quarterback, right? Of the guys in there, besides KJ, he's probably the biggest guy that's in the quarterback room. He's 6'2", 205 pounds, 210 pounds. So he's not a small guy. We're not talking about, a Mikey Keene who's, 5'10", 5'11", trying to throw his weight around. This is, he's a big boy, 6'2", 205 pounds. He's going to take some hits, and you don't want to see him take any hits that he doesn't need to. But it really gets, I think, the players fired up when they see that your quarterback is willing to go out and try and make a play for you. And it gets, that's what you want to see out of your quarterback. Now, I don't want to see him, pull a JRP and not slide and, and get hurt and that sort of thing. But if he's willing to throw a block up there and protect his guys, it shows this kid wants to win.
Yeah, or he's too dumb to realize it. I don't know, but again, this is what you need out of your football team. If you want to say we have, to your point, now we have 3, but at that game we had 4 games left. What's this team going to be about? Is this team going to fight? Are they going to do something and show us something? That's a play that you can look back on and say, hey, you know what? Maybe not everybody's bought in, but this is a kid he's here, he's bought in, and he's going to do some good stuff. So I think that's my sass factor again. But just don't get killed next time, Dylan. I don't need getting hurt.
There were some rumors that perhaps the coaches had lost the locker room prior to the space game, and I mean, if that play shows you anything, it shows you that at least Dylan has not given up on this team. He's trying to make the play, and the game was over at that point, right? There was no need for him to go out and make that block. The game was over after halftime, you could argue, after we threw that Hail Mary, which we haven't really talked about very much. But
foreshadowing.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he went out and he made a play in the fourth quarter. So, he's trying to give his guys some incentive to stay in the game and stay motivated. And it's fun to see that sort of stuff.
Sometimes, Brian, I don't mean this to be a criticism, but sometimes people are just so new to know any better. You know what I mean? Like, he's just so new that he just doesn't know any better. He doesn't know this is supposed to be hard or whatever. Like, and I think there's something kind of genuine about that maybe his teammates kind of gravitate to. Like, this kid's kind of an idiot, but you know what? Let's go. Like, he doesn't have no idea. Yeah, but he has no idea what he's facing. He has no idea what's going to happen today. But you know what? He's ready to go. Like, we're going to be ready to go too. So sometimes you're just too new to know any better. Maybe that's the case with Dylan as a quarterback. But
he's got to be used to being the big guy, right? When he was in high school, if he was 6'2", 205 pounds, he was probably the big guy.
He came from a juggernaut of football in Cardinal Gibbons High School in the greater Fort Lauderdale area there. He's actually shorter than Ja'Cory Brown. Ja'Cory's 6'4", 220. So he's
Ja'Cory that heavy? Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he was that big.
Dylan's taller and bigger than EJ, which I mean, EJ's 17, so that's probably not too hard to do. And KJ should be an offensive lineman. All right, so who do you have, Brian? What is your O? What is your oh my god?
Okay, so my oh my god is, oh my God, Arizona is just a not good football team.
Wow. Kick them while they're down, Brian.
Yeah, I know. And the Big 12 is such a fun conference because there's so much parity. And if you go back and you look at the preseason polls as to who we all thought were going to be the tougher teams in the conference this year, Arizona was going to be one of them, right? Like I said, they were preseason top 25. Everybody kind of had them towards the upper half of the conference rankings, potentially making a run for the conference title. Coming over from the Pac-12 was maybe an adjustment for them. I don't know. But, oh my gosh, they were just not a good football team on the field. Considering the problems that UCF has had over this past 5-game losing stretch, for us to dominate them the way that we did speaks a lot to where they are right now. And I'm sure their coaches are, their players are dejected and, they're ready for the season to be over. But my goodness, I was glad I was wearing a UCF jersey because it must not have been very fun to be an Arizona fan. And much like you, before the game started, I got a chance to speak to a lot of Arizona players who had made the trip to Orlando. And they said the same thing to me that they had said to you, which was, you guys are going to kill us. And unfortunately for them, I don't think a lot of them were prepared for what the space game was going to bring. This was their first foray into learning the space game. So as you were talking to them, they were kind of figuring out like, oh, this is not going to be a good place for Arizona football to be today. But to their credit, they did expect UCF to beat them. And a lot of UCF fans, myself included, were like, well, let's not jump ahead of ourselves here. We're not a great football team either. So oh my God, Arizona's a bad team.
Yeah, I don't know how you couldn't, if you're UCF, have thought that this was going to be a blowout, right? Like, as much as everyone said, like, I didn't believe that, even though people were telling us that. It's funny. During the rain situation, I was still up top with Mario, and there was an Arizona fan next to us. And if you know Mario, as Mario's apt to do, he just wandered away at some point in time. I don't know where he went, by the way. But so it was just me. I was sitting next to this Arizona guy, and so we were chatting it up, and he was kind of saying the same thing, like, "Hey, you know what? It's terrible, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Did you come all the way out here for this?" Like I wasn't trying to be rude, but I'm like, "Did you fly?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I just want an excuse to come to Florida." So that was really it. He's like, "I knew we were gonna get hammered." He's like, "I had a 1% chance that maybe something strange would happen, but I was just wanted to go to Florida." So to your point, yeah, it's a sad feeling. I feel for them because we have all been there. 2015, hello, and so I get what it must feel like. I know what it must feel like to walk into a stadium and be like, we have no shot today, but you're there anyway, hoping your team does something fun.
Terry and the athletics department appreciate your tourism tax dollars that you are helping to pay for our millions of dollars that we're getting from Orlando.
The lazy river, thanks you. My oh my God, Brian, is oh my God. We could completed a Hail Mary. Like, we actually successfully completed a Hail Mary pass. Is the Hail Perryman the last time we did that? I was trying to think through this. And there may have been a couple like end of quarter one. Like I just can't. I could not think through this, and I didn't have enough time to research all this because I don't know that we have Hail Marys figured out. But oh my God, we completed a Hail Mary at a time where, Arizona had come back a little bit. They were starting to show some life. And this was like one of those things where you're kind of like, you're looking around at your friends at the bounce house, like, this isn't going to be Baylor again, right? Like, we got this, right? We're not going to lose this run, right? And then, we have a little bit of time left on the clock. Gus, the reason's not only to Gus. I don't know if he thought he could take his timeouts with him at halftime. I don't know if he was gonna like. I told you that these aren't rollover minutes. Like, you can't take these with you, guys. You either use them now or you don't. He was choosing not to use them, and he obviously put us in a situation where Dylan Risk had to, at that point, complete a Hail Mary pass, or at least attempt a Hail Mary pass. Which the odds of these things being completed, I think everybody knows, aren't strong. But I'll be darned if he didn't, whatever, scramble around, just try to keep the play alive, not get knocked out. It's listed as a 48-yarder, but I mean, he scrambled, good 10 yards back and around. So I'm not sure how far the ball actually traveled. I think it's larger than 48, but it was on the 48-yard line, so that's what he gets credit for. And Randy Pittman, there's a great photograph. I think it's on the sidelines UCF account of basically like 17 Arizona hands and one Randy Pittman. And the caption is, the ball ends up in the hands of the guy with the black jersey on. Like, how is that even possible? And he caught it, and it looked like it was close, but they reviewed it. It was in bounds. Just an awesome play. And this season's going to be one of those that, again, we all look back on and go, oh, what could have been, right? But I will tell you, that moment right there, like, again, we were up on top of the cabana. Everyone's jumping around, hugging everybody. Strangers are high-five, and like, it was just a cool
Arizona guy.
That poor guy was like, whatever, I'm here for the rain. It was just a cool opportunity, cool thing to be part of. So that was my oh my God, we actually completed this Hail Mary, and it was a really cool, fun play. And I think it really kind of kept the momentum going in UCF's favor.
It's, again, this is the first game where Gus is not calling the offense, and we managed to, at the half, throw up a Hail Mary and complete it instead of giving the ball back to the opposing offense and letting them march down the field and kick a field goal, which we had seen several times this season so far. But what's another thing, right? We are so starved for some offensive firepower that this Hail Mary is something that we've been talking about. Like, it's like game changing for our season, right? Obviously the season is not what we thought it was going to be. Yet this Hail Mary is like the highlight of our week right now. And I just quickly looked back while you were talking about the Hail Mary. It looks like the last Hail Mary might've been Hail Perryman. Obviously, all of the news about UCF's Hail Mary is the most recent play. The most recent one I can find before that is the East Carolina game, which was back in 2014. That's the Hail Perryman. So that may have been the last time we had a Hail Mary of that magnitude.
Well, hold on. Help me out here. What's the distance that you have to be for it to be a Hail Mary? Is it 40 plus? Like, what's the distance you have? Like, when does Hail Mary, when is it just like a regular, like quick little prayer? When's a quick little amen situation? And what's the Hail Mary yardage?
I mean, I think that If you're asking me, a Hail Mary's got to be at least 40 yards back from the end zone.
Okay.
Certainly can't be inside the red zone. So you're probably looking, somewhere between 40 and the 50-yard line is my guess for what you would call a Hail Mary. It has to be obviously on the last play of the game or the drive or the half
Yeah.
or whatever, in order for it to count. But I mean, he was just about at the 50-yard line when he threw that ball. So
I think it's a requirement. The ball has to be in the air like 12, 15 feet. Because like if the last play of the game was, you're in a slant route and the DB like falls down and he's wide open, you throw like a laser across the middle, he runs it in. That's not a Hail Mary. Like it's got to have to have some height to it. I need at least 15, maybe 20 feet of height. You need
he's got to throw it into the end zone. Yeah, he's got to throw it into the end zone. He can't hit the receiver at the 10-yard line. And
correct. And there's got to be multiple people there. Like you can't. I don't think a Hail Mary should just be one guy by himself. It's got to be multiple people, distance and height. I think that's the formula for a Hail Mary. We got to figure this out. I'm gonna look at the definition.
And the defense has to be in prevent defense mode, right? They're expecting the big bomb to come out. Yeah.
Okay. Glad we got the figure.
Yeah. Yeah,
we tackled the important questions around here.
All right. You made the comment earlier that you thought EJ was the one with the stronger arm, and maybe Dylan not with the stronger. I thought that ball was going to be short when he first threw it.
It did look
like
I mean, dude, if we're being honest, like
sailed a little bit.
Yeah. If we're being honest, like my first initial thought, I was like, oh, was he in the end zone? Because Randy had to like come up a little bit to go grab that one. It was not exactly what I would call an Aaron Rodgers-esque rocket, but shoot, it worked, and we'll take it, Brian. What is your end? What's your not good enough for you?
My not good enough for the Arizona game is the evaluation of the players and the talent by the coaches. We talked about it earlier.
Oh boy, Brian.
Why are we just now seeing some of these talented younger guys getting time on the field? The Jacoby Jones, all of these players that we've talked about, Randy Pittman finally getting, to be part of the offense. There's lots of younger guys that are just now getting in here. Dylan Risk being, the primary example. Fourth string quarterback is the guy that has come in and given the spark to this offense that we have desperately needed. So what are these coaches seeing that and obviously we're not at practice. We don't see what's going on behind the scenes. But what are they using to evaluate these guys that we, as fans, for the most part, are seeing that's completely different from what the coaches are seeing, or at least what they're providing on the field? So my not good enough this week goes to the coaches and their talent evaluation, and picking the guys who deserve the opportunity to be on the field and get those chances to prove that they belong.
I mean, it certainly feels like recency bias, Brian, but there has been a swell of folks on social media lately, especially Twitter, that have been. I think the hashtag has been free the youngins. I think is what they're going with.
Free them youngins.
Free. There you go. And a lot of that, I think, is based on the fact that, again, people can say whatever they want, and so what's true, what's not. To your point, I'll never know. There's been a lot of chatter that some of the younger players and some other guys have really been playing well in practice, and in some cases outperforming other guys who are ahead of them in the depth chart. Now, again, that's anecdotal. I don't know if that's true. I'm not seeing practice, but that's been a lot of some of the chatter is that not all of the best guys are getting chances to play. I think that bred some of the social media stuff that was out there with some former players talking about stuff like that, right? I think that kind of bred that. You said it earlier. I think some of that kind of went into the mixture of, did we lose the locker room, right? Because you're starting to hear things chirping from here and there. And so it makes you wonder, like, if all that is to be accurately believed, then maybe some of the best players or the right players weren't getting their opportunity until now. What changed? Why that happened? Again, if all that's true, and again, this is just conjecture. If all that's true, I don't know. That's a great question. It's a great question that I would love at some point in time for Trace Trucco to be sitting across from Gus Malzahn and ask him that question face to face, direct to direct. And I'm sure Gus will throw a stapler at him when he does. But that's a question I would love answered, is what went into the evaluation process with some of these positions, and what did you see then versus what do you see now? And I think that would be really interesting to see when and if that happens.
I doubt you'd get an answer out of Gus or any of the coaches, right? They'd give you some coach speak answer. Oh, we couldn't get him in the games. What Gus has been saying about, a handful of players now. Perhaps it's the millennial in me that leads me to, have the mindset that I don't think that just because somebody is a senior player or an older guy that he should get, preferential treatment when it comes to being on the field versus the younger guys. I'm always been a proponent of whoever performs the best should be the one who deserves the reps, right? So I don't know if there's some sort of corporate ladder. I mean, I hate to use that term, but that sort of thing going on in the locker room where the coach is like, oh, well, we got to play so-and-so player because he's been here longer than the freshman, or, something to that effect. If players are playing hard on, in practices, excuse me, and they're the ones showing the effort, they're the ones, if I'm coaching, that are going to be the ones on the field, right? And again, I don't know anything about football. I'm not a coach. I've never done it. That's not my profession. I'm a stupid guy when it comes to football. So I don't know all of these things. Gus has forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. But it really makes you wonder what they see compared to what the rest of us see.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic. At some point, hopefully, we can figure out a way to get some answers. I don't know that, to your point, you're ever going to. I said to your point again, didn't I? Damn.
To your point, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that we're ever going to get answers. I think we'll get a lot of coach speak. I don't think anyone's going to be like, yeah, actually, you know what, Adam, you're right, because he was a senior. I played him, and
we were wrong.
We're ever going to get those answers. Yeah, we were just kidding. Our bad. But it's a fascinating topic to think about. My NG, my not good enough, Brian, is, and I don't mean this to be mean to this person, but it's going to be, so I apologize in advance.
It's not me, is it?
It is not you. It is Fair Catch Whittemore. Good old Trent Whittemore out there on the punt return game. I'm going to assume, and I hope that I'm right here, that he's just following orders. He's following instructions from the coaches. Don't turn the ball over. Make some smart plays. Just give us an opportunity to get the offense. I'm assuming he's just following orders, Brian. But good old Fair Catch Whittemore. He didn't even have a chance to do that many fair catches, which was the other problem. Is it looked like he just wasn't sure. Like the ball was bouncing all around him, and like he was letting it go, and they ended up down on one at like the 1 yard line. And I was like, "What are we doing with the punt return game? Like, what are we doing?" I'm all for, if what we want to do is be conservative and say we don't want turnovers in that part of the game right now. We don't feel like we have a good blocking scheme. We don't have faith in our returners to break one. We're more concerned about what could go wrong versus what could go right. Okay. You want to do that conservative approach, whatever, like that's your, but we're just letting the ball bounce everywhere, letting the team down wherever they want to. And Whittemore's just like, I'm out here. Like, what are you gonna do? I got one leg on one leg sleeve. I'm good, but we're not touching the ball. I don't know what we're doing. So the punt return game, not good enough. I get that. Like, we're not going to maybe return one and we're not breaking one anytime soon, but let's not hurt ourselves. Let's not just let balls just bounce within our own end zones and just start letting guys down it inside the 10. Like, I don't need that in my life either. So punt return game, not good enough.
He got my satisfactory a couple weeks ago for being Fair Catch Whittemore, and not muffing any punts, not causing any turnovers. So he's not doing us any harm, I guess you could say, if you wanted to try and put a positive spin on that. But yeah, every time we were there and we were watching the game, every time there was a punt, you and I looked at each other like, we know what's going to happen here. And not only was he not trying to catch him, he wasn't even close to where the ball was going. Right? No, he was going, if the ball was going to the left, he was going to the right. You knew he wasn't even going to try and catch the ball. Yeah, interesting. That one of the commercial break games they do on the field was they get the jugs machine out and they have a student come out and try and catch those simulated punts. And I wonder if they're looking for somebody to potentially be a punt return or a punt catcher guy in the future. Because they were making more effort to catch those balls than
well, not this guy, not the guy this week. Well, I've seen this guy this week. He was, to be fair, that jugs machine had that guy running back and like they wouldn't. He was back and forth. Yeah. That didn't feel fair to that kid.
It didn't feel fair.
Yeah, it felt wrong. I feel bad for him. But
you were calling for him to fall down, and he
did fall down on the last one. It was unfortunate. I feel bad about that, whoever that person is. But yeah, look, to your point, like I did it again. Damn it. If we're going to fair catch these things, then let's actually just catch them. Like it just seemed like he was like, oh, look, a football. Look at that thing. Yeah, it's over there.
Hey, look, it's over there.
Oh, coach, I found the ball you're talking about. Like, we just got to figure something out there. That's all I got, Brian. All right, last one. Star. Last S and Sons is for Star. Who gets your star of the game?
Okay, so I'm giving my star to two players, Jacoby Jones and Randy Pittman Jr. Both
already breaking the rules, Brian. You get
I know. I'm giving out more stars than you've given me to give out, but I'm giving them to both Jacoby Jones and Randy Pittman Jr. Each had 5 receptions on the day, and they each had a catch that resulted in 40 yards or more. It was their long in the day, so happy to see these younger guys getting out there. We've been clamoring for a long time for a tight end to get involved in the passing game. And Randy Pittman has consistently done that more and more, it seems, every game. To his credit, we haven't had a quarterback who could really pass the ball very well in the first half of the season. So now that we've got a quarterback who's perhaps more comfortable throwing the ball, seeing him get involved is really good. And Jacoby Jones, like I said last week, he came in relief when Kobe got hurt and had to come out of the game, and he had himself a day too. Both of them with 5 receptions and putting up some decent numbers in the passing game, which is a breath of fresh air for our offense.
It's a good one. Yeah. Again, I think that was certainly something that this team needed. We talked about the jolt that I think was required. For me, again, it feels like a no-brainer every week, but I think this one's a little bit special. I'm going to give my star to RJ Harvey. We talked about the stats.
That's a cop-out.
Well, hold on a second, Brian. I got a special reason though. 190 plus yards, 3 touchdowns, yada yada. During the game, it was actually really cool. I don't know if you were there for that moment or not. I don't know if you had left or not at this point, but he moved into second all time on the UCF rushing yard leader list, and they stopped the game. It was a timeout. They put an announcement on the video board. He was already in the field, I guess, waiting for the next offensive series. All his teammates came around and we were clapping, giving him a high five. Coach Malzahn was there, giving him some love. And for a kid who came to UCF, off a transfer, again, stop me if you've heard this before, Brian, but he used to be a quarterback. I don't know if you knew that.
I did know
here.
That, yeah.
Listen, I think the day that whenever the social media graphic came out that said RJ Harvey transferring to UCF, if you said this out loud, you are a liar. Nobody was like, oh my goodness, that's going to be the best running back we ever have. Not one of you said that, myself included, Brian included. Nobody saw that tweet in 2019 or 2020 and was like, this is going to be a game changer. And yet here we are with RJ Harvey week in and week out. No matter what's happening with the team, no matter how things are going, he's been super, super consistent. He moved into second all time behind who's I think should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way, Alex Haynes. So Alex Haynes was sitting at 3,359. RJ now moves in front of him. Kevin Smith has 4,600. It's going to be pretty tough to catch that.
I don't think we're going to catch him.
It's going to be pretty tough to catch that. RJ is also going to move up the charts a ton on the touchdown leader list. If my math is right, he's already got like 16 on the year right now. He had 21 coming into the year. So that should put him, if these stats are right, at 37, which should have him tied for third with Latavius Murray, one behind Willie English at 38. Kevin Smith's got 45. That one may be within his sights. 3 games left, essentially. What he'll have to average, you're the math guy, 8, 6, 5, 3, 8. He'll have to average 8. He'll have to have 8 touchdowns in the next 3 games, which is basically averaging 2.5 touchdowns a game. Not impossible. But
no.
My star of the game,
depending on the play calling.
See what you did there. So my star of the game, RJ Harvey, not just because of what he did, obviously, but getting into that second all-time spot, which is probably going to be cemented because, again, Kevin's going to be tough to catch. But just a lifetime achievement award. None of us in 2019 were pounding the table saying we just got a game changer here in Orlando. Everybody watch out. But yet, I don't think any of us would trade RJ Harvey for anything right now. So that's my star of the game.
It makes me really sad that we've only got him for 3 games left, right? This is his last season with us. And as sad as as disappointed as us fans are and what the season has turned into, I'm really upset about the fact that it feels like we've wasted RJ Harvey, right, in this season, right? We came in with these hopes and expectations that we were going to be, better than we certainly are, maybe playing or trying to vie for a conference championship berth. It really kills me that it feels like we've let RJ Harvey down, right? Because he's just such a good player. He's so dynamic. And he's pretty much been our offense for the last 8 games prior to the space game. And now we're coming to the end of the RJ Harvey era sooner rather than later. Like I said, we've only got 3 games left. Maybe if we can make a bowl, we'll get 1 more. That's if he doesn't opt out in the bowl game. If we make it that far, that sort of thing. So I'm going to be really sad to see him go. And I really am disappointed that we as a program didn't provide a better offense for him to play in. And, maybe have that chance to go to the conference championship and, try and get, a conference championship MVP trophy or something like that. Because he really is a special player.
Well, I think that's what probably hurts the most, Brian, is he had an opportunity. If UCF has a good year right now, if we're not sitting at 4-5 and instead we're 7-2, like his name is probably on the list of some
Yeah.
of the best, players in college football this season. He's still mentioned in a lot of those, but
Mhm.
he's not getting the love that he probably should get. And I understand we had a couple of stinkers in there, and that I think even he'd want back, right? Colorado held him to 70 yards rushing, right? I get it, but I think if we're 7-2. We're 8-1. RJ Harvey's getting in these conversations with other
Yeah.
guys. They're talking about him. He's talked about as maybe the best back in the Big 12. He's talked about as maybe an outsider in the Heisman race, like maybe someone with an
Yeah.
outside shot kind of thing. But because we're 4-5. He gets a little love here and there, and a lot of I think people who watch a lot of football know he's good. But I agree. We should be running a Heisman campaign, with the number 7 instead of the I in Heisman, right? We should be doing stuff like that for RJ Harvey.
Yep.
And it sucks that on a 4-5 year, that's just not gonna be realistic.
You mentioned the touchdown count and him getting close to it, catching up to Kevin Smith. There's been a couple plays, and this season the play calling has been a little different than what we've seen under Gus in the past, right? Not a lot of direct snaps to the running back this year that we have traditionally seen Gus. Once he gets inside the 5-yard line, he usually likes to run the wild night offense and hand directly off to RJ Harvey or the running backs before him. We haven't done that a lot this year. On that first touchdown drive for UCF, we drove down the field, we get inside the red zone, inside the 5-yard line, and we pulled RJ Harvey out, and we put in Miles Montgomery and Jakari Brown. And I made a comment to you, like, we're going to pull RJ Harvey out of the game once we're, inside the 5-yard line. Like, what are we doing here? So I wonder how many plays that could have resulted in touchdowns for RJ Harvey had him, gotten the opportunity to take that direct snap or, not switch the running back out for Johnny Richardson or Miles Montgomery. I won't mention Penny Boone because he's completely disappeared. But if I was RJ Harvey, it's probably a few more touchdowns that he could have had on the board as well if they'd called his number more.
Now, the problem is, knowing RJ, he probably doesn't care about that stuff too, right? He's probably like, whatever. Like, and that's the thing is, he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's like, Coach, come on, man, you robbed me from one there, right? He probably doesn't even care where he is in the list. But again, such a great night and one of those that we're gonna, I think, celebrate for a long time. But let's get our final break in. He should be playing on Sundays. Let's hope he is. Let's get our final break in, Brian. Then we'll come back. We'll do our closing rant, our closing whatever on our mind situation, whatever we call that. Again, Werner, Hoffman, Greig Garcia, they can give you some assistance, especially if you're dealing with some issues insurance-wise post hurricanes. WernerHoffman.com is where you can check them out if you want more details. We'll be right back after this. The Sons of UCF is brought to you by Alumni Hall. Look, being a supporter of your university is more than a diploma on the wall. It means cheering them to victory and singing the fight song. It's a part of who you are. And Alumni Hall understands the need to showcase that school spirit and pride in every day of your life. That's why they're proud to have their new shop located at 4100 North Alafaya Trail, dedicated specifically to UCF merchandise. If it's UCF gear you want, from a unique selection of clothing for the entire family, Alumni Hall has you covered. They are now the hometown college store for our great fan base here at UCF. Again, check them out, 4100 North Alafaya Trail, or go to alumnihall.com, search UCF to make sure you are a part of the action. All right, let's wrap this fun up here. We have our closing rant, our closing thoughts on our mind, whatever it is. And this is the first time this has happened, friends. But I've done some research. I've done some digging. I've seen some of the notes Brian Peterson has taken for this particular program. And I think we're about to see the first time we've ever seen this happen on anything that we've ever done. And this is going to be first. Buckle up, friends. Brian, what is your closing rant?
I didn't want us to make a bowl game. I said, I wanted the season to end. Why would we want to waste our time going to a bowl game? We're just going to get blown out by some, G5 team looking to prove something. Well, nobody ever said that I was a smart person. I've never said I was a smart person. In fact, I would claim quite the opposite. And here we are 1 week later after the space game. We're riding high, and I am completely on the let's get back into a bowl game conversation here.
Oh my goodness.
Let's let it ride. Let's see what we can do.
Brian.
I know it's only been 7 days.
My
I know. So I am fully back on board. Let's make a bowl game. Let's keep the streak going. And let's go somewhere fun, even if it is, a lesser opponent. Let's get these guys some reps. Let's let Dylan continue to ball out if that's, who's our quarterback 4 games from now. Because with this staff, you never really know. But let's even if RJ decides, I'm going to opt out of this game and I'm not going to play. I'm going to go prepare for the draft. Let's get some of these younger guys in there. Let's prepare. And let's have some fun towards the end of the season. I'm all in on the bowl game, and whoever says we shouldn't make a bowl game, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
I'm just in for the visual of I just pictured your house and a phone ringing, Brian Peterson's office. Bowl game. I know. We'll talk. I just picture the calls coming into your office. And
you're the 300th call today that we've taken. Okay.
Your staff, whoever that may be, is answering the phone. I know what he said. We're all about the issues around here, trying to.
We hear you loud and clear.
I said this last week. I was uncommittal to that. I didn't have an opinion one way or the other. And then as you spoke, you kind of swayed me a little bit. Maybe there is better valor in just, saying, all right, let's just go get better this offseason and figure out where this program's at. But I also said, if you tell me I can get one more UCF football game, I'm in for one more UCF football game. As you and I are sitting here, there's only 3 games left in the season. It feels like it just started. And there's literally 3 games left in this season. And then this thing shuts down until September, right? And so if you're telling me I get one more game that I can watch, one more afternoon, I can follow UCF, one more time I can watch the Knights play. And even if I'm mad about it, I have something to be mad about, then I'm always in on that stuff. Now, I know the matchups are sometimes kind of crappy and the locations, right? Although I wouldn't care. I don't think you would care. A Boca Bowl, that worked for me. I can get down there.
For me. I mean, other than the bad vibe from the last time we played.
Yeah, I mean, Bowl. Now if we're gonna go back to the military, I think the Military Bowl, for not just because we got our rear end handed to us, but because it was all the way in Virginia, it just wasn't a very accessible game for a lot of people. It was on a random Tuesday, 2 in the afternoon. Correctly. So there are some factors involved, but if you told me that we're going to get to hang out and go to one more game, it's close, we can go, maybe you get a juicy storyline. I don't know. Maybe you get a little juicy storyline. You're playing a former coach or former player, somebody I'm in. So I could go either way. Here's the thing. If we are, I don't want this team to, lose to Arizona State. We beat, West Virginia. And then it all comes down to Utah, and it's a crap game, and it's a 3-0 situation. I don't want to go to a bowl on those vibes. I want to go to a bowl if we're firing all cylinders. I don't want to kind of back into a bowl. At that point, then I assume the season's not ending as we want it. There's probably changes on the horizon, right? There's probably some things that are going to happen in the off season. I'd rather just get that started versus hanging on for one more bowl game and being oh, well, we don't know what's going to happen next, but hey, we got Virginia Tech this weekend. I don't need that in my life. But if we're playing well, then give me a team and let's go kick their ass too. Then I'm in for that.
They say that winning solves all problems, right? A week ago, we were coming off that BYU game, and I was like, nope, time to hang it up. I don't want to go to a bowl game. And now here we are 1 week later. We're coming off hanging 50 on Arizona in the space game, and we are riding high again. We have forgotten about the past, and we are saying, let's go have some more fun. Let's have a bowl game. Coaches love the bowl games because it's additional practices for the team, and it helps.
That's a great
those
point.
Things.
That's a really good point.
Coaches really want to see those bowl games happen. Players get to have some fun and go on a trip, so to speak, depending on where the bowl game is. So, but you know what? One more game. If we get 4 instead of 3 more, I'm all for it.
The only thing with that is, I think nowadays you don't know who's going to be on your team after those 15 practices, and I think that's the other hey, I'm going to again another show for another time, but Dylan Risk is playing well. Gus really likes EJ Colson. They're about the same grade. At some point, we've got a Mikey JRP situation potentially on our hands again, right? So, and maybe that practice helps figure that out. But whoever's not going to get it, I think that person's probably out the door, right? So we'll get to that later. But my closing rant is this, Brian. It was Hall of Fame weekend at UCF. On the field, we got to see the inductees get a round of applause. They included, some former dignitaries such as Shaquem Griffin, former basketball coach Kirk Spira was there, former UCF running back Mark Giacone was there. Spoiler alert, shameless plug. There's an episode we did with him recently on the Sons YouTube. You can check
Good
out.
one.
And I was struck, Brian, and even afterwards, we all went to the Celeste afterwards, hung out, had a great time. Dolly, JP, myself, Trace was there, Mario was there. We saw Shaquem there, and we saw Mark Giacone there. And Shaquem walked in and got a standing ovation. I mean, there was only like 20 people, 25 people in the bar, but everyone stood up and gave him a standing ovation. Mark Giacone, I don't think everyone knew who he was, but there were some people who did. And I'm struck in that moment, Brian, around like we talk so much and we're so focused on NIL. Who's the next recruit we can get? Who's going to transfer here? And you forget that there are so many people, not just in football, but in general athletics, but we're in the football season. I'll stay there for a second. That help to build the foundation of what this school is today, what this program is today. And it's so easy to forget that sometimes, right? It's easy to forget the Mark Giacones of the world, who in 1987, had to do 3-day practices with a helmet that was probably as thick as a bottle cap, right?
Yeah.
Like you forget about those things that took place and the people who kind of build the foundation. Shaquem Griffin, another great example of a guy who helped literally build UCF where it's at. And I think he's in a class he'll never be forgotten just because he's got such a historic lore at UCF. But there's so many other guys and gals out there who have played these sports, who have built what UCF has become today. And every time it's Hall of Fame weekend, it's such a cool reminder that as much as they're not in the spotlight anymore, a lot of them have transitioned to their normal lives now, right? They're businessmen, right? They're family folks, right? They're raising their families.
Mm-hmm.
They're still an important part of this UCF family, this UCF society. There's a program out there called the Varsity Nights, headed up by Carlos McCants, does a fantastic job. A lot of those former athletes come back and they do different events, golf outings, things like that. I'd encourage everyone to check that out. It's important. It's cool to donate to NIL and the kingdom and whatnot too, but don't also forget about our Varsity Nights, the folks who literally built the foundation for this school. Brian, I know you've been around a long time. You've seen some of the players. We all probably have one or two players in our mind that like are always going to be important to us because we watch them play. Nobody knows who the hell they are, but you do because you're like, I remember my first game. That guy caught a touchdown, right? And so my rant tonight is just, let's find ways to continue to appreciate our Varsity Nights, the Mark Giacones of the world, the Shaquem Griffins of the world, and whoever's in next year's class. Hopefully it's Alex Haynes, by the way. Let's find ways to make sure that we continue to recognize those folks and thank them for what they've built here at UCF, because without them, it's very likely that this program and this athletics department is not where it is today.
No, that's a great point. Recency bias always plays a role into that, right? Everyone wants to remember the players that have, just come off the field or maybe just made the reign of the NFL, that sort of thing. And they kind of forget some of these players that didn't move on to the next phase of pro football, perhaps, or other sports. And, like you said, they're out there making a living and, enjoying UCF like the rest of us do as a fan now. One of the players that comes to mind for me is Stephen Moffitt. He was the quarterback when I was a freshman. I bet that's a name that not a ton of people recognize. He was, he played on the same team that Brandon Marshall did. So, everyone's looking back and they're saying, oh, Brandon Marshall, famous wide receiver, played in the NFL, all these things. But Stephen Moffitt is the name that comes to mind for me. So, obviously I'm a UCF fanatic. So I know a lot of these players by name and their stats and all that fun stuff. But I wish there was a course that, incoming students could take, on the history of UCF athletics and some of the players that, kind of build the foundation for what UCF is today, just in recent memory, you got McKenna Melville and volleyball and, names like that, that maybe unless you're a diehard volleyball fan, you probably don't even know who that is. So it's more than just football. It's more than just basketball, right? We've got a ton of sports that have had success over the years. And there's more than just the Shaquem Griffins out there. Obviously, he is just a phenomenal story and a phenomenal person. But to your point, Adam, there is, there's something to be said about all these players that help build what UCF is today, and they all have their place.
That's one of the things I've loved most about doing shows is when we get a chance to talk to some of those former players, right? And again, not all of them are sexy names. Not all of them are going to like grab you and go, oh my goodness, I can't believe you talked to this person. We've had a few of those on. That's great. But like the Adam Nistleys of the world, like like there's no reason anyone should remember Adam Nisley. No offense to Adam Nisley, right? But he still had a part in what UCF became, right? Justin Tukes, like there's no reason anyone should remember a kind of a random tight end at UCF. I think honestly, it's funny. I was with Mario again, and Mario and I share probably only one thing in common in our lives, because Mario's a lot different than me. The one thing we share in common though is our love for Alex Haynes, who was a running back when I was there. I think as Mario was coming in, he was the running back when Mario was there too. And a lot of people stood up and applauded when RJ Harvey became the second leading rusher in UCF history. But I want to ask around, like, who was number 2? Who was the second leading rusher?
Yeah,
because you probably would have got
a lot. Who it was? Yeah,
you would have got a lot of Latavius Murray's, probably. You probably maybe some Greg McCrae's, right? You probably got a lot of different names. But I wonder how long it would take some people to actually say Alex Haynes. Like
Alex
how
Haynes,
long would have been before Alex Haynes was the answer, right? And I think it's just, I think we as a fan base, Hall of Fame time always kind of brings you to that moment around, like, we really should make sure we continue to find ways to support and wrap our arms around the men and women who built UCF athletics to what it is today. Even a guy like Kirk Spiraw, right? I mean, 1993 to 2010 was the basketball coach. We had him on the show too. We talked about going to recruit against Tubby Smith, and he was driving a minivan and Tubby had a BMW. Like some of the things that are just like, man, like where would this program be without those folks today? So check out Varsity Nights. Get involved if you want to. You can reach out to Carlos McCants. I can get you in touch with people if you want to help and sponsor an event or something like that. Like whatever is good for people out there. But go Old Guys.
Yeah, Kirk Spiraw had a great picture with a bunch of people wearing Kirk's jerks, outside the stadium. So I was really happy to see that. And like you said, Carlos McCants does an absolutely fantastic job. So if you have any interest in that, let Adam know. He can put you in touch with, or you can reach out directly to Varsity Nights as well.
All right, Brian, let's shut this episode down again. A win for the first time in a long time. So let's savor this win and enjoy it. A lot of fun hanging out with everybody this weekend, Brian. You included, you, Dolly, JP, Trace, Mario. Just a good time. Was that Bailey? I met Bailey for the first time.
Bailey was there. Yep.
Good time had by all. So everyone enjoy the vibes, man. At this point, this is where we are, right? Let's enjoy the vibes. Let's tune in on Saturday, see what the Knights do. Keep it locked in here all week in the Sons of UCF, though. We'll have Around the Kingdom this week. Maybe Up All Night. You never know. I never know if that show's on this week or not. Maybe it's a crapshoot. We'll have Sons Live this week as well. A bunch of stuff around UCF. Coordinators are talking tonight, actually. A video will be out soon. We have had Gus talking on Monday. We'll have that out for you as well, too. So stick around. Sons of UCF, anywhere you do social media, anywhere you do YouTube, and also sonsofUCF.com. Maybe an article for Brian Peterson one of these weeks. Who knows? He's been busy.
I gotta get back on busy. That.
Maybe Dolly maybe owes an article. I don't know. Check out sonsofUCF.com. You'll find the work of
Brian
Peterson.
Might pop up there. Yeah.
You never know. Just like Around the Kingdom. And just like Up All Night, you just never know what's going to happen. All right, because Neil Armstrong was not the first woman on the moon. Let's just get that out.
Agriculture, not one of NASA's
not in the NASA. No, that's not their thing. Luckily, sports is our thing, and we appreciate you listening for us. For Brian, I'm Adam. Everybody have a fantastic week. Go Knights.
Ciao, John.